All right, everybody, welcome back to The Infinite today on YouTube. Glad to have you here. We are again in a new background. That's just because I've literally been all over the place this week. Don't have a chance to film at the home studio, and that's also why this video is coming out on Monday instead of Saturday. But there is still so much Apple news to cover that we cannot miss it. So here we go. With that, let's jump right into this, covering all of the news from last week. All right, first of all, Apple had their quarterly earnings call on Thursday. It was a great call. I'd recommend listening to it. The Apple podcast is available for this earnings call. In that call, they actually confirmed that the iPhone 12 will be coming in October instead of September. So what we were just barely talking about last week is actually confirmed by Apple now. Before we were just like guessing because of what Qualcomm said, but now actually Apple themselves are like, yeah, it's iPhone's in October. So there we go. The iPhone's coming out in October, which honestly we're still looking forward to it. It's still a bummer that it can't come out in September, but totally makes sense. Also, Apple broke tons of records. Apple broke sales records in the month of June, which is just crazy considering the current climate that we're in. And with more than half of Apple stores around the world closed, Apple still broke records in June for sales. So with that, of course, Apple's stock price is skyrocketing, and they actually announced a 4-for-1 stock split that's going to be happening on August 23rd. So if you are not yet in Apple stock, that might be a good time to do it because the stock will no longer be $400+. It'll actually go down to about just over $100, assuming the price continues to climb. Okay, next up, there's a new show on Apple TV Plus called The Conversation, and this is starring Oprah. Now, this has been teased basically since Apple TV Plus was announced last March. It was said that Oprah was going to be doing a lot of stuff. Previously, we saw Oprah's book club where she had popular authors on to talk with her about different books. And now we have The Conversation. Personally, I have not yet seen it. It just barely came out on Friday. But if you've seen it, let me know your thoughts on it down below. I'll check it out and let you know what I think next week. Okay, next up, not only has Apple actually confirmed that the iPhone 12 will be coming later than expected, they hinted at, not on purpose, but we have evidence that the smaller 5.8-inch iPhone is actually going to be coming. A new feature on the iPhone 10 and iPhone XS and iPhone 11 Pro is display zoom. Now, this was a feature that Apple actually used before on the iPhone 8 Plus. If you're hard at seeing, for example, you can actually have everything on your display be a little bit bigger. And to do that, they actually used the size of the iPhone 8 and just blew it up to the size of the 8 Plus. Now, when the iPhone 10 came out, the display zoom feature was not available because there was no phone smaller than the iPhone 10 that they could zoom up to the iPhone 10 screen. The iPhone XS Max had it because they could zoom the XS screen into the XS Max. So hopefully that makes sense. But just recently in iOS 14, we saw the display zoom feature come to the iPhone 11 Pro and those smaller iPhone 10 model sizes. This tells us that there is a smaller iPhone on the way because that must be the display that they're zooming up into the iPhone 10. And 9to5Mac actually did a really interesting experiment where they took the 5.8-inch screen on a simulator on the Mac and forced it to boot as if it were a 5.8-inch iPhone, and everything was lined up perfectly. It looked great. So 5.8-inch iPhone is actually basically confirmed now, coming in October, right? Not September. Okay, next up, have you ever shopped Apple online? I'll bet you have, because it's a great store. Every once in a while, just for fun, I'll go on there and pretend like I have all the money in the world, and I'll max out my cart, see how much money I'd spend if I got everything that I wanted, like spec'd out Mac Pro, everything. Usually comes out to about $75,000. A lot of fun. Great game to try at home if you'd like. But actually, the original Apple Store was something called Apple Designs, okay? Now, Apple Designs, man, this was for the real fanboys of Apple before it was cool. Okay, you have all kinds of things on here. You know, you have Apple for kids with all kinds of like baby gear, you know, teddy bears, things like that. Really just cute stuff. I mean, if Apple sold this kind of stuff today, you know that it'd be a huge hit because you already have Apple fanboys. But this was like back before Apple was cool. This was before Steve Jobs had even returned to Apple, which, I mean, I doubt Steve Jobs would ever let this happen. In fact, this was probably canceled as soon as Steve Jobs got back. But you can see some of the stuff. I mean, they have locks, they have keychains, notebooks, awesome purple and teal jackets, all kinds of stuff on here. Oh, also the original Think Different Apple posters. Which one would you get? Let me know down below. I'm really interested here. So here's all your options there. Okay, next up, Tim Cook actually went to Congress this week for the antitrust hearing. Tim Cook, honestly, again, super biased here, but Tim Cook did the best out of the CEOs. I mean, it was no doubt. You had Jeff Bezos, you had Sundar Pichai, you had Mark Zuckerberg, and Tim Cook. I mean, these are like 4 of the greatest leaders in the world. And they were all here just sitting on this Zoom call. It was really funny because we even had technical difficulties with Jeff Bezos, the savage, which I know that we talked about Apple stock earlier. I think that one of the reasons why it's going up is because honestly, Apple is not really under threat of being broken up by government. They're not in the position where they really have a monopoly on any one thing except potentially the App Store, but even that, it's pretty vague. But the other organizations did really face serious, potential threat. Amazon, for example, really shady stuff going on there. Google, interestingly shady stuff. But of course, Sundar Pichai's answer was always, hey, I'm gonna look into that and I'll get back to you. So, I mean, pretty vague answer. And then of course, Facebook, it's always like, it's like literally the shadiest organization on earth. So there's that. So Tim Cook was only asked 15% of the questions. Mark Zuckerberg was asked something like 35%. So Mark Zuckerberg by far had the most. Mark Zuckerberg did throw Apple under the bus a couple of times. So that's interesting. But of course, Tim Cook has also thrown Mark Zuckerberg under the bus.
Really
so Mark Zuckerberg, what would you do?
What would I do? I wouldn't be in the situation.
Classic moment, highlights of Tim Cook's life. That's definitely one of them. And I think that it turned out really good for Apple. After the hearing, I mean, there's no really substantial evidence that Apple deserves to be broken up or should be broken up. You guys, of course, WWDC is coming up, not next month now, but in 2 months. So we're hoping to get more rumors about that coming up soon. And when we do, of course, I'm gonna be covering all of that. But until then, guys, if there's nothing big, like any big drops, hoping iMac drop on tomorrow, but honestly, it's not that likely. If there is an iMac drop, of course I'm gonna see you for that because it's an iMac drop. Unless there's not a redesign, then I might just be too bummed to turn on the camera and everything because the rumor is that there might actually not be an iMac redesign, it'll just be new internals. So boo to that because we haven't seen a redesign since 2010. If you look at the iMac face on, literally 2010, 2020, same computer. You're like, I don't see a difference. That needs to change. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into The Infinite today. And please remember to subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a ton. And like the video if you haven't already. You guys, thank you so much. Have a great week. Everything Apple news right here on The Infinite. Glad to have you. We'll see you next time. Peace out.